Welcome to the Nurture Small Business Podcast. I'm your host, Denise Cagan, president of the DCA Virtual Business Support. At DCA, we believe in small businesses and the families they support. Learn more at dcavirtual.com. Jamie Van Kuyk, the owner and lead strategist of Growing Your Team, is an expert in hiring and onboarding teams within small businesses. Drawing from over 10 years of leadership experience, Jamie teaches her clients how to hire their first team members, including employees or long-term contractors. By learning the dynamics of each company and their specific needs, she helps them find their perfect fit, long-lasting team members and avoid the hiring and firing cycle. Welcome to the show, Jamie.
Hey, thank you so much for having me.
All right. So couple interesting things about you. I did truncate your bio just a tiny bit because I wanted to ask you about this. Part of your bio says you love exercises that take your feet off the ground. So talk to me about that. What are those things?
Yes. So right now, one of the things that we do very frequently is we rock climb as a family. We are in St. Petersburg, Florida, which is flat as can be. So it's indoor climbing at the gym, but we love it. And we love to find places when we're traveling where we can go rock climbing outdoors. So this summer we're going to Colorado and doing some on actual rocks, rock climbing while we're out there. So that is one way that we do that. And then also, I haven't been able to get back into it as much as I'd like, but I used to be an aerial dancer.
Wow. Tell me a little bit more about that. That sounds super interesting.
Yeah. So it's kind of like the stuff you see in Cirque du Soleil. So on the fabrics, my favorites were the hoop and the static trapeze. So I have been a dancer my entire life. I grew up pretty much in the dance studio, danced all throughout college. And after I graduated college, when I was looking for what around the area does adult dance classes, now that I have to find dance classes on my own, found a studio that offered aerial dance, decided, hey, that sounds pretty cool. Like, let me try it out. And I fell in love. It was pretty amazing. So I did that trained there for a few years, just going to classes, and then ended up joining their kind of a performing team or performing like group and everything. And so it was a 9-month period, I performed pretty much every weekend and I loved it.
That is pretty incredible. It sounds like a lot of fun too, and takes a lot of physical stamina.
Yes, it does. It was when I told my friends that I was doing it at first, they're like, wait, Jamie, you have no upper body strength. How are you going to do that? And it took a while to build it up. But yeah, it does take a lot of strength and a lot of muscles that you're like, oh, I didn't even know that muscle existed.
That's interesting that you say that, because typically women don't have a lot of upper body strength. But when you do start doing something like this, you have to develop it.
Yes, you do.
So Jamie, you also have a podcast. Is that not correct?
I do. I have a podcast. It's called Growing Your Team.
Okay. And just give us a sample of what you might talk about on there.
Yeah. So it's a mix of episodes where I'm sharing information and then episodes where I bring in guests, and it's all about hiring and leading teams within small businesses. So pretty much anything that falls under that, we cover on the podcast. So we share tips on how to hire the right people, how to learn to lead your team within small businesses, because anyone who has a team within their business can probably relate to, it's way different to do it in your own business than it was in a corporate company when you had resources and an HR department and senior leadership and all that stuff. And now you're doing everything on your own. Yeah. So we talk about things in all of those areas. So that way small business owners can get the knowledge that they need to be successful with their teams.
And so your podcast name is also the name of your business.
It is. Yeah.
What inspired you? Yeah. What inspired you to start your company?
Yeah. So it was a very long path that got me there. So the very short version of, I always knew I wanted to run my own business. The question was, what do I want to do? So I decided that I was going to work in corporate for a while and use it as a learning opportunity, see how businesses were ran, see how, like things that I didn't know, like the skills that I would need, like learn the skills that I would need And I made a lot of decisions when I was in corporate, when it came time for like, okay, do I put my hat in the ring for this promotion? It was, what will I learn in this position that will help me be a business owner? And that's kind of how I ended up in the leadership track there, because I was like, I'm not going to hire someone to run my team for me. So I'm not going to hire someone to be the CEO of my own company. So I need to learn how to be a leader. Fast forward a few years, I finally left corporate to start a business with my husband. 6 months later, realized that I absolutely hated that business. I was miserable every day. And I said, what do I do? I was doing a little consulting on the side with the corporate company that I left. And I realized I really liked consulting. I liked helping people learn skills that they needed to be successful. But I was like, okay, well, what do people want to learn? What do people need to learn? I started talking to a lot of small business owners at events and realized that one of the struggles that kept coming up over and over again was around hiring, that people are like, I have no idea how to hire. I've never done it before until doing it within my own business, or just like leading teams in when you're working for someone else. Or like hiring is completely different when you're doing it on your own versus when you're doing it in a corporate company, because you don't have someone else writing your job posting. You don't have an HR company that's helping you screen candidates. You don't have senior leadership to bounce your decisions off of to make sure you're making the right decision. And now it's all falling on the business owner, and people wanted help in the area. At that point in time, I tried doing a Google search to see who is helping in this area, and I couldn't find anyone. I couldn't find anyone helping small business owners hire their first team members. They wanted to help people like once they got to 50 plus employees, but you can't get to 50 plus employees if you don't start with that first employee. So I was like, all right, people need this help. There's not people working in this part of the industry. I'm going to do it.
It's interesting because I don't think I've seen people who consult in that area either. I just went through a hiring boot camp, but it was part of a larger program that I'm involved in. It wasn't a standalone. So I love that you offer this, as an alternative to small business owners. So when you start bringing on a client, talking to them and doing the discovery, is there a starting point that you typically recommend to clients?
Yeah. So the first place that we start with all our clients is you really have to know who it is that you want to hire. What are these people going to be doing in your business? So we work with a lot of clients that the position they're trying to fill is their first time adding that position to their company. And a lot of times they're like, I need help. And we're like, okay, well, what type of help? What does help look like? And that's one thing you really need to figure out first is, what does help look like in your organization? What type of help do you want to bring in? How will this help impact your organization? And we see a lot of businesses make the mistakes of, we're just going to hire someone that's good at whatever it is they do, and they'll help us figure out what we should be delegating. And I'm like, that doesn't work, because how do you know they're going to be good at what you actually need done? So you really need to figure out who it is that you want to hire in terms of skills, different competencies, different education levels, if depending on what's needed, and also what it means to do that job within your company. Because you can take the same tasks, put it in a different company, and it's a completely different position. So what does success look like to you? So that's the first thing that you really need to figure out when you're going to go and hire. And for our clients who haven't figured that out yet, that's where we start with them. It's, let's figure out who your idea candidate is, so then we can find them, because we can't find them if we don't know what we're looking for.
I know there's a book out there called Who by Jeff Smart. And I mean, he suggests, and I haven't read the whole thing. I've read a portion of it. He suggests very much, I don't know the way to describe it, more like siloing and specializing. Is that the same type of approach that you take?
Yeah, in a lot of ways, because you need someone who's good at what needs to get done. And a lot of small business owners, they think like, let's just do these kind of catch-all positions. Like, they're going to help with this. They're going to help with that. They're going to help with this. And it's like, very rarely are you going to find someone who's good at everything. And what happens? Either they're going to be failing your expectations in some areas because it's not their skill set, or they're going to completely ignore those areas because they're going to focus on what they're good at. So things aren't going to get done, or they're not going to get done well when you try to have them do everything. So I am very much a believer in having specialized positions. And sometimes that means, okay, instead of hiring someone full-time, you hire 3 part-time people, and maybe some of them are only working for you 10 hours a week, but that's what you need. Or instead of hiring someone as an employee, you start off with hiring someone as that highly specialized contractor at first, that maybe they're working with multiple clients, but they can do what you need without you having to hire someone full-time, because you don't have the ability to bring on someone full-time yet in that area of skill. So I think that you need to be very specific. Some things go well together and other things don't. Like, one of the things I see a lot is, especially early on, a lot of people want to give every position a sales responsibility. And it's like, not everyone's good at sales. Not everyone's going to bring revenue into your business, and not every position should be bringing revenue into your business directly. But they could be helping to support your business and doing things that need to get done. So either yourself or someone else in your business can be doing things to bring in more money and make those sales. So it's like, if you try to give everyone a sales responsibility, either that's all they're going to focus on is sales because they're doing it really well and getting rewarded because they're bringing a lot of revenue in, or they're going to hate it, they're going to ignore it, and it's not going to get done, or they're going to leave. So
it's interesting. I present to my leadership team, their responsibility in sales is really great customer service, because that gets us referrals. Yes. So it's not directly selling. Yeah. There's a lot of indirect things that go on in the business that impact your revenue. Like I say, every position that you bring on should have a revenue impact. And that can be direct, because yes, they're out there making the sales, or sometimes they're doing the marketing that you can directly tie to dollars, or it's those indirect revenue generating positions that, because you do this, the company can earn revenue because these other things happen. Where it could be, you're providing great customer service, so the person wants to come back again. They want to buy more from you. That's super important. Or like I said, like could be taking work off your plate so you can go out and sell more. So you can go out and have more billable hours, or whatever it is in your business that generates revenue. So with what you just said, that every position should be tiable to some type of financial impact on the company. My company has virtual assistants. Most people do not consider that as a direct impact on the financial health of the company. I mean, and I feel like they do, but how would you explain that? Oh, they definitely do. Because why do you have a virtual assistant? Because you don't have enough time to do it all, right? Yes, so usually they take work off your plate, and then you fill that time with something that could generate revenue. So if they're taking work off your plate, and then that gives you the ability to work with more clients, they impact revenue, because you couldn't work with more clients if you had to do that work that the virtual assistant is doing. So it's one of those things of, they do this so someone else can bring in more revenue. Yep. And that makes sense. And often that's the conversation that we have. It's just a little harder to convince some people. Yeah. And there are sometimes, like some positions, it does get really hard to have that tie. And there are some people that it's like, I don't care if I bring in more revenue from it. I'm tired of working 80 hours a week. So it's in my budget that I can have this team member, and we're going to make no additional money off of having this team member, but it's good for my mental health. It's good that I get to sleep. I get to hang out with family. I get to go to the gym or whatever it is. And sometimes it's like, okay, there's not going to be that ROI with revenue from having that position, but there's a different ROI that you're measuring. And that's okay, as long as you're aware of that. And you're not saying, where's the money going to come from this team member? Because I don't have money in my budget. I don't have room in my budget. We're not making more sales. So it's okay sometimes to not have there be that direct revenue impact, but you need to know it before you enter the situation. Absolutely. So we talked about identifying what would be some of the next steps? Yeah. So once you know who you need, it's all about finding them. I always say hiring is just like marketing for your business. People can't buy your product, buy your services if they don't know that they exist. With hiring, they're not going to become your team member if they don't know that you have an opening. So you need to get your position out to the right audience, because that's also the thing. You could have the great marketing in the world, but if you're marketing to the wrong people, they're never going to buy, right? So it's the same with hiring. You could have the best job posting, but if you don't put it in a place where your target candidates are going to see it,
no, you're not going to have the right people apply. So you need to communicate your position to the people that you want to hire. And you need to communicate it in a way that makes them want to apply, that say, yes, I want this job. Gone are the days where you could just post I'm hiring and have flocks of your idea candidate coming to you. People are very particular, as they should be, with where they're going to spend the time to earn money. So they want a position, the candidates want a position that is the right fit for them. So you need to communicate properly to the candidates so they can identify that. When you put out a good job posting, it should do two things. It should attract the right candidate and kind of turn off the wrong candidate. Like someone should read a job posting and say either, yes, this is a job for me, I'm so excited to apply, or no, that's not the right fit for me, let me go elsewhere. Because you don't want the person who's the wrong fit working for you, because they'll be miserable. And in the end of the day, you'll be miserable and not happy with the work. And chances are they won't stay around. So you need to communicate the position properly to the candidates.
Okay. What are some of the most common mistakes that business owners make when fashioning their ads?
One of the things that I see people do is they go out and use a lot of generic job postings. It's like, okay, let's say, for example, a bookkeeper. They're like, I'm hiring a bookkeeper. A bookkeeper's a bookkeeper. So I got this template. I'm just going to go with it. Or here's what my business friend used. They sent it to me so I could potentially use it too. We're just going to go with it. And every position is unique based on the position, based on the company that it's in. So the tasks might be the same, but your expectations are different. Your clients are different. It's like one of those things where we always talk about, once again, from a marketing perspective, like what makes your company different so a client would want to work with you over somebody else. It's the same when you're hiring. Your business, your culture, your everything else is different. So what is it like to do this job inside your company? And that's what you really want to communicate. You want a fairly thorough job posting, but you don't want one that goes on for pages and pages and pages, because no one's going to read it. So how do you concisely tell them what they need to know? And so that's important. I've seen people do it too short. One of my clients, when we were working together, he had an opportunity to hire, and because we were working together on helping him become a better leader in his organization at that time, but he had the opportunity to hire a new team member, and he was so stressed out going into it. He goes, I hate hiring. I never get good candidates. It's like, I don't want to do it, but I need to do it. And I was like, okay, well, we're working together. Let me see the job posting. Let's figure out what's going on. His job posting, I think, was like 4 lines long that pretty much said, we're hiring, come work for us. And I was just like, well, here's your problem. Like, your job posting isn't telling them anything about the position. It's not telling them anything about your organization. I was like, this is why you're not getting good candidates. And what he told me was, he was hiring for personal trainers. And he goes, I want all personal trainers to apply. So that way I can then sort through their resumes and say, yep, you're what I'm looking for, or no, you're not. And I was like, well, how's that working for you? And he's like, well, I guess it's not, because like I said, I never really get anyone to apply. And I was like, yeah, no one's interested about the position because you're not telling them anything for them to become interested about it. You're not connecting with anyone. They're just like, okay, like, they're just going on to the next opportunity that really connects with them. So we rewrote the job posting. We took it to where there was a good overview about the company. And when I say good overview, it's like 3 sentences most, I say, to give an overview about the company. A 3 to 4 sentence overview about the position in kind of paragraph form, quick bullet points about what are the day-to-day responsibilities, quick bullet points of the requirements, like what license and everything they need, or certification and everything did they need. And then that was it. We posted it out there. Within 48 hours, he had 4 highly qualified candidates apply. He made his hiring decision by the next week, and he was super happy with how smooth the process went. And the thing about it was, he was hiring personal trainers, but he was hiring personal trainers for a very specific sport, and people needed experience in that sport in order to be qualified. So for the fact that he got 4 highly qualified people in 48 hours was amazing, because the fact that there weren't that many personal trainers out there that actually had the qualifications that he was looking for. But we were able to communicate to the right job seeker and make them realize that this was the job for them.
Yeah, I've tweaked my job ads several times. I think my initial one was a little bit more like cut and paste, and it sounded very transactional. And then after tweaking it, we started to focus on the fact that we serve small businesses, and you would be surprised how much that piques interest of certain people.
Yes, it does. Like, because people like working with certain types of clients. They like doing certain things. They've realized where their passions lie, what they're good at, what they're not good at. And so they want to find the right position for them. And you're going to have other people that read that job posting and say, I don't want to work with small businesses. That doesn't sound interesting to me. Like, that would drive me crazy. And they deselect themselves from the process because they don't apply. I'm a high believer of, you don't want hundreds and hundreds of people applying for your job. Like, a small, good set of candidates is really what you're looking for. That if you're saying no to more people than you're saying yes to, your job posting is probably not connecting to the right people.
So we determine who, we get the right job posting out there. Now you've got the qualified candidates. What's the next thing we would do?
Yeah. So then you have to go through the interview process. So you had people apply, but are they right for the position? And so typically you're having them, they'll submit a resume, and you'll be able to see some basic qualifications on there. You'll see some basic things of what have they done before. And I always tell people, just remember, you're not hiring someone off their resume. You're giving someone the opportunity to interview based off what's on their resume. So do not try reading between the lines. Like, a resume review should really take no more than a minute. If you're taking more than a minute to review a resume, you're taking way too long, because you're trying to figure out everything that this person has done and what do they mean by this. And you're searching for things that maybe you'll never find on the resume. So it should be pretty quick that you review a resume and sort people. Yes, no, yes, no, yes, no. And then you have a conversation. The interview process is so important. And it's one of the mistakes I see a lot of business owners make, because they just go in and they wing the interview process, or they go and Google great interview questions and they come up with a very big list of generic questions, or they ask the same questions of every position they're trying to fill. And none of this works. You want to ask questions that are very specific to the position that you're trying to fill inside your organization. So a sales position, you should ask very different questions than probably you're asking your admin, because they're very different positions. You're looking for different skill sets. So when we create what we call the hiring strategies for our clients that include job postings and interview guides, we spend the majority of the time creating those interview guides, because the questions are so important. And to figure out what you should ask during an interview, we go back to, well, who is your idea candidate? We spend time creating that picture of the idea candidate and really figuring out who it is you're trying to hire. And once you have that picture, we need to ask questions to identify if the person you're speaking with is that idea candidate or not. So when you were saying, I need this person to do X, Y, Z, I need this person to do this in order to fit in with our client flow and to make me happy as the business owner to sign that paycheck, you ask questions that identify those things, that really focus on those areas.
And besides the interview, what other types of assessments do you regularly, recommend?
It depends on the position. There are a lot of positions out there where the interview is really all we do. We do at least 2 interviews and we don't do any additional assessments. Some other positions, we're really saying, okay, they talk the talk. It sounds like they're good at what they're doing, but can they actually walk the walk when it comes to these tools or the being highly skilled? And sometimes then we'll put people through case studies or testing around specific skill sets. So for example, we're recently working with a bookkeeping client, or a client that's hiring she has a bookkeeping practice, and they go through specific testing of, do they actually know how to use QuickBooks? Do they actually understand how to put together the documents and everything that they'll put together for the client? So there's some online testing and everything that those candidates are going through. We've done before with marketing positions where we say, put together a presentation for us based on this information. Here's what you have. All right, go and do it and spend no more than X amount of time on it. And you'll present at the beginning of the next interview, the presentation that you put together, because we want to see, do they actually understand the concepts that they talked about? And can they do presentations? Because this position would be responsible for doing presentations. And then some other ones of our candidates, we look at personality assessments. I think a lot of business owners use personality assessments incorrectly throughout the process. So we make sure if our clients are doing them, we really understand why are we doing them? What are we trying to uncover? And we typically do them very late in the process because we shouldn't be trying to determine, does this person have the qualifications? We've already figured that out. We've already put them through the interview. We've possibly had them do some other types of assessments or tests, but we're trying to really figure out, do they fit in with the organization? Do their strengths match what we need? Do we know as leaders when we're bringing people in, do we have the ability to lead them? Or is it going to be a really big challenge? Because when you're on a small business, someone who goes against the grain of who you are as a leader or how the rest of your team operates can be a big negative impact on the business. Mm-hmm. Large corporations, they can fit in because there's so many people there. Where in a small business, you want to make sure this person is actually going to be a good fit for how you lead, how your rest of your team functions. And those are some of the things that you can identify on a personality assessment. But we try to avoid saying, all right, this person needs this on their personality assessment in order to be qualified for the position in terms of because, for example, sales, people are always like, well, they should have this personality in order to be good at sales. Doesn't always work that way. People can have all different results on personality assessments, can be good at sales. It's how do they use their strengths to make them good at sales? How do they do this? Like some people are those go-getters and stuff like that. And you're going to see that. Other people aren't. They're more introverted, but they can build really good relationships that turn into really good referral networks. And that's where they focus. And so we just want to make sure we're not disqualifying people because we say they're the wrong personality in order to do these skills.
Yeah, that makes sense. We don't do a personality test, but we do a communication assessment that tells us how do they communicate and how do they like being communicated with. And we do that in conjunction with our working interview. And our working interview, interestingly, uncovers some of those personality traits. You know, you can find a person on occasion that doesn't take accountability, like will blame mistakes on the software. You know, that's usually a bad sign in the interview. And then we find people who have, great communication skills. We uncover a lot of things that aren't always uncovered in the other interviews that we do. So we do like doing that. And we also pay team members because it's prospective candidates rather, it's 3 hours of their time. So we do pay them for that time, even if we don't hire them. What are your thoughts about working interviews?
So I think they have a place sometimes. I think sometimes they could also be a great opportunity to have them get to know other team members. Because if you think about it from the candidate's perspective, they want to find a good fit for them. So giving them that opportunity to see, how does your team actually function? What are they doing? It can be good. There are other times where I'm just like, it's a waste of your time. We're already finding out a lot of information that we need to know for this position. Why make them do another step? Why take your time to put them through this work and interview? Why take your team members' time to meet with this person, especially because you said like 3 hours? Like that's a lot of time where they're not spending doing something else in the business. The thing about working interviews, if they are producing anything and touching anything that's would be done anyway in your business. So when we're really talking about working interviews and they're going through, let's say, your systems and they're actually touching like client stuff and they're doing actual work that would be done by a typical team member, you do have to pay them. So if you're doing something where it's like case studies and mock things and stuff like that, you don't necessarily have to pay them. You can be nice and pay them for their time when they do that, but they're not creating anything. They're not touching anything that is actually, you're not using the stuff that they create. But if you're using the stuff that they're creating or touching and stuff like that, you do have to pay them as part of that working interview. So I know sometimes there's confusion around that, but my thing is know what you're trying to get out of it. We've had we've had clients where a working interview is not a typical part of their process, but they're like, we really like this team member, but we feel like we need another conversation with them to make sure that they're the right fit for our organization. And then we'll bring in stuff like, well, instead of just doing a back and forth interview of Q&A, why don't we test them in a different way? Why don't we see how they interact with the team? Put them in a situation where maybe they're a little bit more comfortable and they let that guard down. So sometimes we'll add those things to the process, even when they weren't initially there, because we need that additional information. It could be like when it comes to communication styles, like we got a feeling of this. Let's actually see if this is right.
Yeah, I would agree with all of that. Our working interviews are all hypothetical, non-client work, just simply because at this point in the process, we really don't want them touching our client work. We haven't confirmed we want them as a team member, but we do pay them as a courtesy, just simply because that is a long amount of time. And you're right, for the business, it took us time to create those interviews. We have 3 different types of working interviews. And it takes a lot of time to complete them and do the assessment on it because there's notes that have to be taken and we have to spend time to review. I feel like for us, it's been really beneficial because it's helped to identify some things that we don't always see in, the phone or the face-to-face interview.
Yes, it does. And especially sometimes when it comes to technology, sometimes that's really hard to really understand a lot of times the person's ability to use certain systems and everything in a Q&A style interview. And having some sort of working interview where they actually have to get their hands on in the tools, you can see, okay, maybe they've never used a specific tool before, so they don't know how to do everything, but can they at least navigate a little bit? Do they know what questions to ask and stuff like that? And other times you can say okay, they really understand it. I'm looking for someone who's an expert on this and I can see that they're an expert on it based on how they navigate it.
Absolutely. So we've covered the who, the ad, the interview, personality tests. What else would you like to share with us today before we close out for the day?
Yeah. So the other most important thing is you've made your hiring decision. Now they need to become a part of your team. So you have to onboard them. I always say onboarding starts before the new hire's first day. So you want to welcome them to the team. You want to make sure that they're comfortable coming into your business so that it doesn't have to be much, but making sure you send them an email after they accept the position saying, welcome to the team. We're so excited to have you. Here's what you need to know about your first day. Because sometimes people's first day hours are different than what they would typically work. Because maybe, for example, they would typically work 9 to 5, but you have a 9 o'clock meeting. So you're going to have them start at 10 instead, because that's the first opportunity you're going to have to sit down with them. So let them know things like that. What can they expect that first day? So they're comfortable coming in, because you're having someone come into your business for the first time. There's still some of those nerves. So how can you help them relax a little bit before coming in? And then, even though you're hiring people that should be skilled and knowledgeable in the skill area, you've done your due diligence. Remember, they've never done it for you. So you need to properly onboard them and talk about your systems, your clients. How do they find things? How do they navigate things? What's going to make you happy? So this all is a part of the onboarding plan. And onboarding is typically more than one day. It can take a few weeks to get through everything. And that's okay, because you have to remember is typically you're hiring because you don't have enough time in your business, you're overworked, you need additional hands, which means you typically don't have, let's say you're hiring a full-time team member, you don't have 40 hours to sit with a team member on their first week and train them and teach them everything of how to navigate your systems, how to work with your clients, making sure that they're getting up to speed properly. So onboarding can sometimes take a few weeks because you're working with them a little by little to get them fully up to speed. But onboarding is super important. You need to do it so they actually know your expectations, because if they don't know your expectations, they're never going to meet them.
Great information. Jamie, how can our listeners find you after the show?
Yes, you can find me at growingyourteam.com. And we are on LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook under Growing Your Team.
Perfect. We'll make sure all that's in the show notes.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you for joining me for today's Nurture Small Business podcast, where the focus is on business growth, technology, and people strategies to help your business thrive. At DCA Virtual Business Support, our focus is making your business operations run smooth so you can focus on growth. Reach out to me at Denise@dcavirtual.com if you'd like to learn more.